profile. There is your agency budget for Indian River County on the second page. And if you are an organization that serves more than one county, we want to see your total operating budget. So that'll be the third page. If you only serve Indian River County, you don't need to worry about that third page. Okay? Pretty simple. And then the attachments that we'll go over. But everything in here is, everything that you need is in this packet. So I would say, there's a tip here. Before you even start writing anything or gathering information, read through this packet, pay close attention to the submission requirements on page 8 that we'll get to, and start forming your thoughts, kind of do an outline for what you need to get done. Make your own checklist. We've given you some ideas, but you need to make your own checklist as you go through and figure out what it is you need to gather here. So as I mentioned before, step 1 is completing the grant application cover page, which you can do very simply. Step 2 is writing the executive summary. Now we made this step 2 simply because it's the second thing we want to see in your packet, but a lot of people, when I've done grant writing in the past, you like to write the summary last. Write your grant and then go back and write your summary. Just don't forget to go back and write your summary. And this is just a quick overview, the who, what, when, where, why, and that's going to help us when, should you be successful, we need to start communicating to the board of directors what the program and project is all about. It's going to help us kind of frame our thoughts as we get into the program. So you don't have to go more than a page. Just be specific and get the details later in the application. And I'm not going to go over every point because you can read this, and I think most of you have done this before. Step 3 is the narrative, and again, there's no form to fill out. We just want you to type it in your own Word document and print it out, and we'll tell you the requisite copies that you have to give us. It should be no more than 5 pages, and it should follow the outline that we're providing, and we want you to use the subheads that we've given you. So on page 1, you're going to have narrative, and then underneath you're going to have number 1, your copy, number 2, your copy. So please make sure that it flows in the way we've designated it, because that's going to be very important to the grants committee. We want to see consistency, and we're going to get into the flow of reading these and know what to expect. And if you go out of order, it's going to throw them, and you're going to make them work harder than they want to work. So Carrie mentioned this before. One of the most important things when you're writing the narrative, and one of the most important reasons we changed the format this year, was so that you don't feel the need to duplicate information. We want to hear it once. We don't want to hear it 10 times. And believe me, you will be more impactful with your message if you write it clearly the first time and don't find the need to repeat it. So if you included some information in section 1 and you feel the need to include it again in section 2, you need to check yourself. Where does it belong? Put it one place, not 2. And I would highly recommend you have a second set of eyes and maybe even a third set of eyes. Look at your grant application so people can help you see where you might be duplicative. That gets cumbersome for the reviewers, for the grants committee, to have to read the same information. And quite honestly, when you're on your 20th grant application, you get a little testy about those things. And you don't want to make the grants committee testy because it's such a difficult job to begin with. 99.99% of every grant application we receive is worthy of funding. Our job is to see which of those applications align most closely with the intended guidelines in the RFP. What the donors wanted to accomplish, what the board of directors wants to accomplish, doesn't mean that a proposal isn't good or isn't worthy. It just means it might not align with what our goals are as a funder. And every funder has goals. The Quail Valley Nonprofit Collaboration Fund has very specific goals that are very different from what the Community Enrichment Fund is. And that's our job as a grants committee to kind of narrow it down and see which ones align most closely and are most likely to be effectively executed. So in the narrative, number 1 is organizational information. This is a quick snapshot of your organization, your mission, your vision, what your success stories have been over the years. This is your opportunity to establish credibility with the Grants Committee, to let us know that you're strong, you're passionate, and you've been successful. Younger organizations that maybe don't have as much historical success to rely on might talk about their board leadership and what spurred them to found this organization and how effective they've been founding the organization. How much time you spend here is completely up to you. You might, again, you want to budget your time. You've got 5 pages. You might only want to take 1 page to give us the organizational background. But again, it's what you feel is going to be most effective in establishing your credibility and your ability to effectively deliver the program you're proposing to us. Number 2, so you're going to have number 1, organizational information and your copy. Number 2, purpose of grants, and then your copy. And under that, we've got some clear subheads as well. The problem and need. Let us know, what is that unacceptable situation in our community that this program is going to alleviate? This is less about you and more about the community. Talk about the community issues here. Give us data, give us statistics that help illustrate what you're seeing is a problem in our community that you want to change. And what unique services do you have that the community is going to be deprived of unless you're able to deliver this program or project? The project program goals. Describe your goals and overall impact of the program or project. What is it that you hope to accomplish? Now remember, your goals are broad, and here's where you might want to talk about your strategic plan and how this program or project fits into your strategic plan and what the overall goals are for your organization. It's really important that we get a sense that, if this is something brand new that you're doing, we want to know that this is part of the long-term vision of your board of directors and that you're not just chasing dollars because a good grant came up. Tell us about your program project design. What are your objectives? So you've got your broad goals, and then what are your objectives along the way? Carrie talked about check-in points. That when are you going to know, how are you going to know you're on the right track? That's where your objectives come in. What will your activities be? What strategies are you using? Who are your community partners? All of those details that will show the grants committee that you've thought of this from every single angle. And I promise you, even if you think you've thought of it from every single angle, the grants committee will ask you questions you didn't include. So don't feel bad about that. It just is a great second set of eyes about your program or project design to help you think, oh, we didn't think about that, but we need to include that in the grant. Or we haven't thought about it at all. We need to figure that part out. And that doesn't necessarily mean it was a poorly prepared grant. It just means another set of eyes came up with another opportunity. And then finally, sustainability. And this one is always tricky. Organizations, hope is not a plan. We hear that a lot, and we use that a lot in grants committee. We hope to execute additional fundraising to keep this program going. That's not a really strong case for sustainability. If you're going to do something like that, I highly recommend you tell us what those fundraising activities are going to be. The grants that I've seen funded successfully we're going to go out and raise more money to do this, to keep it going after the grant money runs out, are those who said, we have this successful fundraiser and 25% of the funds from this fundraiser are going to be dedicated to this program ongoing. Or we have this group of donors that we're going to go to. They give us their plans and their ideas for who they're going to approach following the grant to keep it going. And hopefully we'll use the data that they gathered in the first year from this grant to help sell it and provide an emotionally compelling case to new donors to say that this is effective, look at our outcomes, we've done this well, won't you help us keep going? So if you build that into the sustainability piece, you'll do yourself a big favor. And there's a tip here that's important. It says, if a similar project or program has been conducted by your organization or another, discuss its impact. If you have some kind of deep experience in a particular area that is related to what you're proposing, tell us about it. Decide where you want to put it, whether it's in part 1 or part 2, but make sure you include that information because we want to know what your successes are and give us that confidence that you have the ability to execute this program. Number 3 is evaluation. So this is a really important piece, and sometimes I don't think the nonprofits completely understand why we ask about it, but you are required, and in the RFP you see, you have to give interim and final reports. And in those interim and final reports, we will want to see what your outcomes and measurements are very specifically. And we've actually had nonprofits return money to us because they weren't able to execute the programs. It's happened twice, both times were very amicable, but they had some very specific objectives that they weren't able to achieve, but because they built that into the program design, we were all on the same page. There was no misunderstanding about what they were promising to deliver and what our expectations were. And at the end of the day, we knew whether this was a successful grant or not. One of those organizations has since gone on and they're executing the project, and hopefully they'll come back to us and ask for another grant because it was one that we loved and we were so sad it wasn't able to get off the ground. But grant making is always risky, and this is a committee that's willing to take some risks. So outcomes and measurements, describe your proposed project program outcomes and make sure that you're including some references to your strategic plan, those overall goals of your organization, again, because we want to know that this is part of the long-term vision of your board of directors. If your program is expanding, tell us what you've done so far and what's going to be achieved with the additional money. We don't just want status quo here. We're looking to see how this grant is going to elevate your organization or how this grant is going to elevate the program or project that you're expanding. And then the measurement. You have to show us what success is going to look like. We have to know that at the end of the day, you're going to be able to illustrate success by these measurements so that we can, frankly, report back to the community that this was a successful grant. Or it wasn't, and we have some lessons learned. So tips, set measurable goals and specify your plans to communicate with the Community Foundation along the way. That's a really important tip, communicating with the Community Foundation along the way, because Carrie is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to working on outcome measurements. She will give you some ideas. I mean, today we're going on a site visit for a grant that's in progress right now, and it's struggling a little bit. And so here's another set of people who care about this organization and care about the program that are taking time out of their day to say, not to watchdog it, but to go in and say, okay, so what are the challenges and what is it that we can do to help? So it's important to stay in touch with the Community Foundation along the way and be realistic when you're setting your action plan and giving us the details of how you're going to execute the program, and when you're setting your measurable outcomes and your objectives. Really only tell us what you know you can deliver or what you can reasonably expect to deliver. Don't be pie in the sky, because worst case scenario, you'll get the grant and it won't be successful because you were too ambitious. Any questions yet? So step 4, number 4 in your packet, is to complete the program project and agency budget. And this is really accurate and detailed information about what you're proposing to do. How are you going to spend the money? We need to know these details. What is it going to? Is it going to salaries, which is okay? Is it going to capital expenses? Be realistic and project it based on your past experiences and what you know about the program and project already. Again, you're going to have 3 pieces. You're going to have the program project budget, you're going to have your Indian River County budget, and then you're going to have the total program budget. And these forms, honestly, are the exact same forms that we've used in the past. They haven't changed at all. So if you've used them before, you're going to be using the exact same things again. Question?
Often the organization's budget has slightly different categories. and we have to figure out where to fit some of the numbers. Would you just like a cover note that says such and such is under this category, or would you like us to call and ask you where you want that number?
Be reasonable with it, but there's a note section on it, and, you can, if it's, fairly straightforward, I would just list it in the notes. If it's something you're really struggling with, give Carrie a call, and she'll tell you where to put it.
You mentioned capital improvements, although it wouldn't be a capital, it wouldn't be a building. Are you talking about equipment that you need?
Yes.
To
Yes. Absolutely. And we will likely want to see, I don't think we asked for it up front, but we'll likely want to see bids. If it's something that the grants committee, moves forward with and wants more information on, don't be surprised if we want to see what your bid is on it. Or if it's about bringing a consultant in, we're going to want to see that contract with the consultant. They really like to know those kinds of details. You don't have to provide them up front. We don't want to waste your time. Let's see if they're interested in it, and then we'll dig deeper along the way. Any more questions?
Relative to the budget page, if you're on a January 1 to December 31st fiscal year, do you want the completed actual for 2012, the completed actual for 2013, and the budget for 2014?
Yes. Right, Karen?
Whatever your fiscal year is,
That's
put it in here.
okay. And then the final step is gathering the attachments. Do not send us more than we have listed here. Don't send us your annual report. I'm sorry, it goes in the